I'm Lieutenant Smith. I'm joined by AWS-1 Hartel. We are aircrew aboard the MH-60 Sierra helicopter stationed down in NAS Key West, running the search and rescue mission down here in NAS Key West. I've been in the Navy for closing in on 8 years. I have been stationed in Pensacola, Corpus Christi, Texas, San Diego. My last station was HSC-25 in Guam. AWS-1, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. AWS-1. I started in in Chicago for basic, then went to Pensacola for aircrew and SAR training, and then Virginia for HSC-2, which is our fleet replacement squadron. Then I went to HSC-9, also based in Virginia, deployed twice on the USS George H.W. Bush aircraft carrier as part of Strike Group 2. And then for my shore rotation, I came down here to Key West, and I've been here since. About a year here in Key West.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and push some slides here, and we'll just talk about what we a little bit about the MH-60 Sierra helicopter, what we do as far as mission sets that it can do, and a little bit about all the different capabilities, basically. So a brief overview of what we're going to talk about is search and rescue mission, vert rep mission, strike group integration and support, strike attack, special forces and operations. But first, I'm sure some of you guys would like to learn a little bit about the training pipelines and how we go about becoming a naval air crewman or a naval aviator or flight officer. So AWS-1, if you'd like to start off talking about your training pipeline and what that entails.
Certainly, sir. This picture here you can see is that was my first jumps out of SAR school in Pensacola. First time jumping out of the helicopter. It's pretty exciting. It's still exciting. It's really fun. So pretty much once you start the pipeline, you'll go to basic training. Any special program, you'll be in what they call a 300 division. So for mine, it was swimmers, divers, and we had EOD. And then usually they'll put SEAL and SWIC in a separate one, but sometimes they'll mix all 5. But yeah, you'll be in a 300 division, which essentially means you get to get up 2 hours before everybody else and go to the pool or do extra PT. But yeah, it's a good time. Learn your 11 general orders and your Settlers Creed. That'll be a huge thing going into basic. If you already know that stuff, it'll give you a big leg up over everybody else. From basic, you'll go to Naval Aircrew Candidate School, which is down in Pensacola. It's a fun school. You get to do a lot of cool stuff, jump off platforms, do parachute simulations. You'll ride the helo dunker there, do some swims, a lot of PT, a lot of classroom stuff. It's a pretty good time. Then for me, I went to SAR school after that, which is all the rescue swimmers go to SAR school next. And that's where they really PT a lot every day. It's a great time, though. I wish I could go back. It was super fun. From there, you'll go to SEER training, which is survive, evade, resist, and escape. Plenty of great SEER stories. You'll never do anything else like that for sure. I'm sure LT has some good stories from SEER also.
Oh, yeah.
And then after SEER, you'll go to what they call a fleet replacement squadron. And that's when you'll first really start flying and learning how to do your job. There's about 10 flights you have to do, and each flight covers a different mission area where you'll do pretty much just the very basics, and then you get NATOPS qualified, and that's the annual standard that we have to hit every year. And then every year we get reevaluated upon that standard. And then after your fleet replacement squadron, you'll go to your first command. Mine was HSC-9, and that's when the real work starts. You'll get to deploy and learn all the systems on the aircraft more in depth, and that's when you'll start learning how to shoot and how to get out and do stuff and all that kind of good stuff. But yeah, it's a ton of fun. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough.
So to kind of talk about the naval aviation, the pilot and flight officer side of things, there's 2 different routes that you can go down, either the pilot or the NFO. NFOs are the backseaters. They kind of deal with all the weapons release, and they basically are the ones that are actually running the mission a lot of times with and backing up the pilot with the actual flying of the aircraft as well. NFOs, if you've ever seen Top Gun, that's Goose. And then obviously Maverick is the frontier, the pilot. So those are the two different routes you can go down. The training pipeline for a pilot or an NFO all starts in Pensacola with what's called Aviation Pre-Flight Indoctrination, or API, where you basically do the ground school, all the classroom activities that you'll need for aviation. You learn navigation, you learned engines, aerodynamics, all this fun stuff. After that, you will go to a primary flight training squadron where you will fly the T6 2, and that's going to be either out of Milton, Florida, Whiting Field, or Corpus Christi, Texas at NAS Corpus Christi. Depending on your grades, needs of the Navy, preferences, things like that, you will then select you'll select your platform, or be told what your platform is more specifically. And that'll be either tailhook, helicopters, or maritime patrol. Maritime patrol, you'll go and fly multi-engine trainers, and then eventually go to the FRS to fly P8s or E6s. And then helicopters, you will go and fly the TH-57 out of Whiting Field in Pensacola again. And then you'll go to your respective FRS, depending whether or not you select Romeos or Sierras. And that's more, you have a little bit more choice as to what your preferences are on that. And there's enough slots generally to go around. And then tailhook is going to be either F-18s or E2s or C2s. And you'll go down that path with intermediate and advanced training in either Meridian or Kingsville, and then eventually the FRS again. Again, FRS training, Fleet Replacement Squadron, teaches you how to fly or operate your specific platform. And then you go to your first Fleet Squadron. You generally will do your SEER school along the way. And like AWS1 said, lots of really good SEER stories. But it's basically training you how to survive and then how to conduct yourself when you're captured, or if you're captured. So it's evading capture and then how to conduct yourself if you are captured and interrogated as a prisoner of war. So moving on, is there anything else you want to talk about on this slide, AWS1?
No, sir, go ahead.
Okay. So the primary mission that we operate down here, and we're going to talk probably the most about, is search and rescue. It is probably the most common mission set that we actually do operationally at any given time. A lot of the others we'll talk about, but we rarely get to actually do them. So just talk a little about search and rescue here. We can do search and rescue at sea or over land. On the left, you can see a photograph of a cruise ship lowering a medic or a SAR swimmer down to a cruise ship, and for them to medevac or rescue somebody off the cruise ship. Off to the right, you can see a swimmer being lowered down onto the top of a building in order to affect help a patient on the top of that building there. Additionally, we got military or civilian. We help out both. Our primary function down here is to assist with the jet TAC air ops that are going on, but we also get a lot of tasking from the United States Coast Guard and other civilian agencies in order to assist with various things. You could see one of our swimmers being lowered down on the picture on the right to do some training with the U.S. Coast Guard there. Then night or day, we can operate in any particular weather. We can operate in any particular night or day, whether it's the darkest nights or the brightest days, clears the skies, we can do it. On the left is a landing to effect a rescue, or basically we're able to land and pick people up. And then off to the right is picking up a injured person off of a oil platform out in the middle of the Gulf there. I think that pretty much covers it for search and rescue. AWS1 broadly. AWS1, what would you like to talk about with search and rescue?
Yes, sir. I'd just say definitely all weather too. Stormy, snowy, rainy. We can still go. We got all weather aircraft and all weather pilots, which is a huge blessing for me. I ride in the back of the aircraft, so pretty much LT does the flying, and I just jump out and get people whenever he tells me to. So yeah, pretty much day and night, wind, snow, rain, clear days, heavy seas, whatever, we can go do it.
Another mission that we do quite often is vertical replenishment, or VertRep. And you can see here, it basically makes use of the cargo hook on the bottom of the aircraft. And it is a much faster way of transferring cargo than the traditional conrep, which is when ships come alongside each other and transfer cargo that way. So you can see here on the left, a load being hooked up, and then on the right being picked up. And depending on how good your resolution is on your screen, you can make out a helo over the deck of the that's the USS Ronald Reagan over on the right that we are replenishing off the cargo ship that we're on. So this is ships in Conrep. The center ship is a USNS supply ship, and then they also have lines going across between the destroyer and this supply ship and the supply ship and the carrier. So they're doing two ships at once here. But again, the VertRep is the faster, more efficient method of transferring large amount of cargo. Since this is something that's a little bit more dynamic of a flight, relies heavily on the aircrew making calls. They're the ones that are operating the cargo hook and everything like that. So I'll turn over AWS-1, talk more about VertRep.
Yes, sir. Yeah, this is a super fun mission for us. Where it's really dynamic. We'll usually have at least 2 helicopters, sometimes more going. And correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but I think each helicopter can do as much as 2 conrep stations. And as you can tell from this picture, they're kind of limited by how many conreps they can set up, just from the shape of the ship and everything. But then you throw, 2 or 3 helicopters in there, and you've essentially just doubled your production. And yeah, it's super fun. We work with the ground guys are important too, the hookup guys. And the guys, if you look on that carrier on the picture on the right side of that picture, you can see the forklift drivers and stuff. So pretty much we're going to stack cargo as fast as we can. And then it's up to them to get it out of our way on the elevators. Then they send it down to the hangar and it gets dispersed amongst the ship wherever it's going from there. So it's really all hands evolution. For the most part that day, there might be 2,000-3,000 people working on that problem. But the aircrew and the pilots are definitely the driving force on that. The faster we go, the faster everybody else can go. And yeah, it's a super fun mission.
All right. Next is we have amphibious assaults. These are a lesser known ship in the United States Naval Inventory. They're LHDs, LHAs. They basically are the primary tool for the United States Navy to transport the United States Marine Corps for their missions overseas. Here you can see, this is LHD-1 USS America, and you can see a number of Marine Corps Ospreys. You can see a number of Marine Corps F-35 Bravos. The vertical takeoff and land jets. Those replaced the Harrier jets in the Marine Corps. And you can also see a couple of the Navy H-60 Sierra helicopters. During these missions and these deployments, it's primarily the Marine-centric mission. However, we do interoperate with the Marines. We'll supplement their operations. The Ospreys and the jets can only do so much. Sometimes they need a smaller helicopter that can operate in and around ships, being a sniper platform, being just a troop transport for helicopter visit board search and seizure, things like that, which we'll get to here a little bit later. But it's basically a helicopter aircraft carrier, but now that we have vertical takeoff jets, they've been putting jets on board here as well. My first deployment was aboard the USS Bonham Richard, which was LHD-6. One thing that you don't see here is toward the aft end of the ship is a enormous well deck that ramp lowers down, and then you have the LCAC hovercrafts that can come out of the ship and provide a beach assault platform that way as well. But big ship, it's a little bit longer than 800 feet, and it it can hold its own when you're talking about being like an aircraft carrier. It's about the size of a small World War II escort carrier. AWS1, have you ever spent any time on a LHC and would like to talk anything about this?
I've never spent any time there, sir, but one thing you did bring up that's pretty unique to the aircrew pipeline is when you go through aircrew candidate school, that's a joint Marine Navy school. So half my class was Marines, half was Navy, and half of our instructors were also Marines. So it's kind of I don't know of a whole lot of things that overlap like that as much, but it's pretty interesting to get to work with, hand in hand with the Marines. Staff Sergeant Sadrick was my instructor, and not a lot of people get that. Not a lot of sailors, I guess, get that close contact with Marines. That is pretty unique experience.
Hoorah. Yeah, it's kind of piggyback on that. Flight school on the pilot and NFO side is also joint. We train with Marines and Coast Guard individuals for the pilot side. So a lot of good friends from flight school for me were Marines and Coasties. But moving on, we'll talk a little about the carrier strike group side of things. I've never really been involved in the carrier strike group operations other than Vert Rep. So I'll turn this more over to AWS1 Hartel, who has done a couple of those deployments.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, strike group. It's 5 to 7 plus ships, depending on where you are and what you're doing. 8 squadrons, varying different platforms. You got E2s, which are the early warning. You see them, they've got the big disc on top. C2s, which move people and cargo pretty much from shore to the carrier. And then the Sierras are the helicopter squadrons, and we'll disseminate that cargo and people and mail throughout the strike group. And then that helicopter in that picture is actually a Romeo, so they do a lot of surface control stuff. They have a lot of the pretty advanced radar and stuff, and they can hunt submarines. They can dip sonars to track submarines and they can actually drop a torpedo off that helicopter, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. And then usually we'll have 4 squadrons of FA-18s, and they'll have different specialties, but usually 2 will be like air to ground specialty, and then 2 will be kind of air to air, rest cap or rest court, or just cap in general, which is combat air patrol. So pretty much one of our missions, which we'll get to in a second, is SAR, combat search and rescue. So if one of those guys gets shot down over land, they'll launch our helos to go pick him up and make sure we get him before he gets captured. And then we'll have probably elements of 3 or 4 of the F-18 squadrons that go with us. And their job on that mission is pretty much to keep the helicopter safe. And so we'll have a combat air patrol that escorts us. We'll have a F-18 up high that's running the whole mission. And then there's another one that's the F-18 Gulf, also called the Growler, and they do electronic warfare, so they can jam everybody else's comms and radars and everything like that, so that we can get in and out safely. So yeah, a lot of the carrier is a very unique city, really. They say they're the world's smallest airports or the biggest ships, whichever way you want to think about it. But yeah, flight ops on a carrier is something, if you ever get the chance to see it, it's definitely worth seeing. It's pretty impressive. I was on the George H.W. Bush, and we could launch four catapults and 3 wires. So, depending on how quick the pilots were, we could get 4 planes off deck and back on as fast as the pilots could get around the pattern. But yeah, the strike group's pretty fun. You'll get to see a lot of cool places. Especially being aircrew, we get to go inshore a lot more than some of the sea-specific rates. But yeah, EOD will deploy on these. We had an EOD contingent. We had a diver contingent on our boat. Yeah, security detachment. So you don't have to just be aviation to get on a carrier, but it is aviation-centric, of course. You got anything else, sir?
Nope, that was very thorough. Go move on, talk a little about special operations and how we support spec ops from not just the Navy, but also from the Air Force, Army, things like that as well. couple different mission sets that we do. Paradrops, as you can see on the two pictures here, general insert, extract, and SAR, which AWS-1 already kind of talked about. You wouldn't generally think of paradrops as being something a helicopter could do, but we can, and it is a requirement that the SEALs and other special forces are required to maintain, not just out of a back of an airplane, but also a helicopter as well. Insertion extraction takes a couple different forms as well that we'll talk about. Primarily fast rope, rappelling, or spy rig. On the left, you can see fast ropes being executed. On the right, you can see rappelling being executed. And spy rig is basically a long chain. It's a long rope with a lot of carabiners on it, and people will just run up, hook onto that. It's primarily an extract method where basically a helicopter will come and pick everybody up in one fell swoop and go. Cast is basically generally used for any time that you're putting somebody out of a helicopter, but specifically here that I want to talk about is whenever people are jumping in the water. Something that we do a lot. It's a modified version of basically the SAR jumps that we practice. It could also involve a CRIC, a combat rubber rating craft, which is a rigid inflatable Zodiac, if you will. And then HVBSS is helicopter visit board search and seizure. Whenever a team has to go over from a U.S. warship to a civilian ship, that is one of our primary missions. Sometimes they'll just take a little craft, a little boat over, but a lot of times they will utilize helicopters to drop people off onto those ships in order to either prosecute a takedown if they're being hostile, or if there's no feasible way for them to get over to the ship with a small boat. You want to talk about any of these? Amplify them a little bit, AWS-1?
Certainly, sir. Yeah. Another thing we've gotten to do a few times that's pretty fun is we'll do simultaneous helo and boat ops. So working out the timing between when those boats are going to approach the ship and when the helicopters are, who's going to get there first, if we're going to arrive at the same time. But, you got to think you've got an aircraft that's moving significantly faster than either boat, the small boats that are moving faster than the target ship, and then the target ship that's still moving. So it ends up being a lot of rate, time, and distance kind of calculus to get all that timed out right, which involves a lot of mission planning and a lot of communications. And it's really fun when it works out. As far as the insert and extract stuff, we did some training with these guys. It was actually an Army unit, and they had put some guys in the field, and they were observing this. It was like a training town. And then we were supposed to provide them, we had a 4 helicopter go. We had a gas hit on the way from the Marines. This was a big joint training thing we did. And essentially, we were bringing the assault force. So we came in, 4 helicopters, about 10 people in each one, and dropped off this 40-man Army assault force. And they went and did their thing, and then we provided ISR, which I think LT will get to in a little bit, and some airborne gun patterns for them as they requested. But the main thing with special operations is you always got to be flexible and just kind of flex to what they need and try and help them out however you can. And so their ground commander called us and asked us if we could take their advanced force back, because those guys had been in the field for about 2 weeks. And so, of course, we were like, yeah, sure, no problem. It was only about 12 guys, but they all ended up getting in my helicopter. And these guys had been in the field for like 14 days, like I said. So they smelled so bad. And we had to fly about 3 hours back to Virginia with a whole helicopter full of smelly Army guys. But it was good fun. It was a good joint training, which is another good thing about being aircrew and helicopters specifically, is you get to work with pretty much anybody that calls, we'll try and support them. So even down here, we work with Marines, Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, typically monthly at least. So yeah, it's pretty fun, dynamic job with a lot of pop-up challenges that you just got to work together to get over. But yes, sir, that's all I got.
Okay, awesome. So to kind of go off of, you mentioned ISR. ISR is one of the things that we can do. it basically, when they don't have access to, say, a drone or something like that, we can serve as a video and an intelligence gathering and surveillance platform. We'll orbit up high above the whatever the thing of interest is, and basically just communicate what we're seeing. If you see on the picture on the right here, there's a large ball on the nose of the aircraft, and that is a very, very powerful camera that can also do infrared and low light imaging. And some helicopters have the ability to transmit that video feed back down to a command center. So we can also send pictures over our LinkNet and a couple other things as well. But that is something that we are capable of doing. Could talk a little bit about strike and attack. We have the ability to carry a number of different weapons on board this aircraft. Some I'll talk about, and some that AWS-1 will talk about. On the left, you can see MH-60 Sierra helicopter firing a Hellfire missile. We can carry any variant of the Hellfire missile, up to 8 of them at a time. It is a laser-guided missile with a pretty decent range, not as long as some of the larger ones. Still kind of a small missile, but it can do a lot of damage. And then we can also carry a couple different firearms on board. What you see on the left is a 20 millimeter fixed forward firing Gatling gun that we can control up front. And then we also can carry a LAU style rocket pod, which can shoot rockets. They can be either just standard dumb rockets, or they actually have a what's called the APKWS now, which is the Advanced Precision Kill Weapon System, and that each one of those rockets has a small little laser guided seeker on it. So if you can laze it, they'll fly towards a particular target that you're designating. A couple of the missions that we have is anti-surface warfare, which is against ships. Anti-submarine warfare, that's more what the Romeos do. But we can operate as a torpedo truck for the Romeos and deploy the torpedoes if they basically give us what they need. And then armed escort, anti-FAC, those are kind of the small boats that will come out and try and attack larger boats using swarm tactics. I'll let AWS-1 talk a little bit about the crew serve weaponry that the helicopter can carry, as you can see on the right there.
Yeah, certainly. So this is on the right, you can see a 7.62 caliber M240. It's a pretty solid weapon. We can shoot that from the window. On the previous slide, you could see the GAL-21, which is a 50 caliber machine gun out of the helicopter on the right. That little, looks like a little stick sticking out of the door, but it's actually a 50 caliber machine gun. And yeah, they're both super fun to shoot. Pretty effective, yeah, against FAC-FIACs, extremely effective against those. You've got upwards of 4+ helicopters in the air anytime when the strike group would be in a vulnerable position, restricting their ability to maneuver or anything like that. And yeah, it's pretty effective and fun. If you're an AW, you'll train a lot, you'll shoot frequently. And once you kind of get the hang of it, it's pretty awesome.
All right, so at this point, we got about 10 minutes to open it up to questions, sir.
Okay, great, thanks. And for anybody who was following along there, that FAC-FIAC thing, some navies have purpose-built small attack craft that'll harass our ships, and sometimes they take boats that were built for other purposes, or even jet skis, and put weapons on them and use them to harass our ships, like the IRGCN has been doing, and I'm sure you saw in the media recently. So that's what he's talking about, is being able to help keep those things away from our ships, because sometimes they get pretty darn close. So start off for you, Lieutenant. We have a question from Mr. Rustum in California. Do you do search and rescue during bad storms?
We definitely have weather minimums that we will basically take a little bit more in-depth look as to whether or not we should go, but we can do that, yes. There's some restrictions that AWS-1 could talk about with how much of a bad seas or storms that they'd be willing to actually go out of the helicopter into the water for. But we can fly pretty low and with pretty low ceilings and in pretty bad visibility. We can make it happen. Obviously, whenever it's like really bad storm, it really degrades your visibility. So if you're going out to search for somebody, you're not going to have really good visibility, really good ability to do searches. But if it's purely for a rescue, somebody's on a radio calling for help and they can tell you their location, things like that. That's a lot easier. And then we'll kind of talk about that and mitigate the risk as best as possible.
Excellent. Next question is for AWS-1. Cephas Stellhorn from Katy Division wants to know, what is the difference between the Navy and Coast Guard's rescue swimmer programs, and what are the benefits of the Navy rescue swimmer program?
Thanks, sir. Yeah, so pretty much our job in the Navy, the Coast Guard has split that job into two separate jobs. So the Coast Guard has what they call a crew chief who does all the helicopter stuff. He runs the hoists in the back. He makes sure the helicopter's flying well. Anything that goes wrong with the helicopter in flight, he'll try and fix it. And then they have their swimmers who are EMT trained and all that kind of stuff. They jump out, rescue people, do the medical treatments once they're in the bird. The Navy has essentially combined those two jobs into one. Plus we get to be gunners, plus we get to do SAR. So we're more of a jack of all trades, whereas the Coast Guard is very specific. And the Coast Guard does mainly only civilian stuff, whereas we get to go do, as you've heard from the stories and seen from the slides, we deploy worldwide and do all that stuff. I hope that answered the question, sir.
Perfect. Next up, this one's kind of for both of you. We can start off with Lieutenant Smith. From Mark Griggs at the Alexandria Division, what was the most dangerous rescue mission you've ever done?
Most dangerous rescue mission. So I actually have a decent amount of rescue missions I have participated in my last command in Guam. There was not a Coast Guard aviation unit in Guam, so we were on the hook 24/7 for any sort of rescue calls. And the terrain there is pretty mountainous and cliff and jungle, things like that. So there's some very deep valleys where you have to get the helicopter down into pretty tight areas that you have no sort of way out if something goes wrong. One of them comes to mind where it was a very particularly dark night. We had set up actually to do a simulated SAR mission, combat search and rescue. So we're already kind of in that mindset, and I hop in the helicopter doing what's called a hot seat from a previous crew. Blades are still spinning, and you basically, one person gets out, the other person gets in, take the helicopter and go. And they start calling up all over the radio and giving us the details, and we go. And it was actually a two helicopter rescue in this very small, cramped area. Basically, you got cliffs on all sides, trees hanging off. There's a waterfall behind us, and we're on night vision goggles trying to effect this rescue and not hit the side of the cliff and basically haul out about 12 people. So you're maintaining that hover for a very, very long time, and it gets fatiguing after a while. So you're hovering for 45 minutes, and it can be very draining.
Yes, sir. I'll probably take a slightly different tact. That's definitely, as far as flying goes, that sounds insane, sir. I'll have to get that whole story from you someday. But the most messed up patient we ever picked up, I would say, me personally, the F-18s, their cabins are pressurized, right? So if that system fails, these guys might be flying at 10,000 feet, and the pressurization makes them feel like they're only at 2,000. But if that fails, then all of a sudden they're at 10,000. Then if it kicks back on, they're at 2. So this guy had actually bounced several times and diverted because that system was failing on his plane. And we had to go medevac him. He diverted, I think, to Cyprus. So we left the bush and the Mediterranean, flew into Cyprus to get this guy. We took our flight doc with us, and he evaluated him on deck. And we definitely saved this guy's life. And by the time we got him back to the bush, his motor functions were not there. Essentially his brain was shutting off from his body from the nitrogen bubbles in it. And we got him in a dive chamber, and they pressurized him, and he stayed in the chamber for about 2 days before he got out, and he ended up being fine. But the next day, their CO came down and gave our whole crew coins and thanked us for saving the guy's life. So that's probably the most messed up patient I ever had, sir.
Thank you for sharing. Over to you, Lieutenant. Max Thalman from South Bay Coastal Division wants to know, does the Naval Academy graduate SAR helicopter pilots?
Yes. So there's 3 different primary commissioning sources, all of which will go through the same exact flight training. Your commissioning source does not necessarily determine what your job is in the military. You can commission it from the Naval Academy, you can commission via OCS, or you can commission via ROTC programs. And that's going to be completely independent of what your job can be in the military. So I went through OCS. A couple of my friends have gone through the academy. A couple of my friends have gone through the ROTC program, and it really doesn't make much of a difference. Obviously the level of education is going to vary depending on the college you go to. So some people want that Naval Academy graduation, that Naval Academy degree. Some people want to go through ROTC at wherever, whether it's UVA or whatever college you want to go to, or if you want to go through your own college, go to Harvard or Yale. I had some guys from my OCS class that went through Yale Business School, and then they joined the Navy and went through OCS with me. So it's the college that you go to and the commissioning source is completely independent of the job and the training that you're going to wind up doing.
Excellent. 2 questions for AWS 1. The first one's from Summer Phillips Boyes. What is the best part about being a rescue swimmer?
It's hard to choose, sir, honestly. We get to fly, you get to jump out, swim. If you enjoy physical activity at all, this is definitely not a desk job. Don't let anybody ever fool you into that. Yeah, we're flying 3, 4, 5 days a week. Yeah, I love it, sir. You get a lot of good medical training too. That's another really high point. A lot of guys get out and become EMTs if they decide not to do it for the career or whatever. So yeah, you get a lot of good cross training, and plus you get to shoot machine guns out of the back of the helicopter, which is amazing. I don't know, other than the Army or the Navy or maybe the Air Force, I don't know where else you could possibly get to do that. And let me tell you, yeah, you haven't lived.
All right, and Crystal Sue wants from New York wants to know what your motivation was in becoming a naval air crewman.
So I was my last job before I joined the Navy, I was a ocean rescue lifeguard in North Carolina. So pretty much worked on the Outer Banks and loved it. I swam in high school and then got that job afterwards, and pretty much, loved all the things about, being able to pluck somebody out of the ocean when otherwise they would die. Like, that's a pretty freaking awesome feeling. But it's really hard to have any kind of sustainable life if that's your job. Like, you're going to be poor if that's your job. But if you join the Navy or any other, branch doing rescue stuff, you can actually make a decent living. Like, I live very comfortably. You can see the bikes on, behind me. So yeah, it's great. You make a good living and you get to do something that is a positive influence for other people.
Excellent. Over to you, Lieutenant, for Andrew Hebert's question from Band of the West in California. If you didn't know, the Sea Cadets have their own awesome rock star band. Do you need good eyesight to become a helicopter pilot?
So yes, there are minimum eyesight requirements for any pilot program that you want to go through, and it doesn't depend on helicopters or jets or anything. You all have to meet the same minimum eyesight requirements, and that's one of the things that you do first thing when you report to Pensacola for API. Is you go through what's called the Naval Aerospace Medical Institute, or NAMI, and they basically will go through with your health with every test they can conceive of, and a lot of times they'll get so detailed with your eyesight that they'll pick up on things that in any other like eyesight test in the world optometrist would never pick up on. However, that's not the end of the world. Because if it's correctable to the minimum standard via LASIK or glasses or what have you, that is completely acceptable.
from Timothy Sovic at Stockdale Division. What is one piece of advice you would give to someone interested in becoming a rescue swimmer?
I would say when you're in high school, either join your swim team or your cross country team, or both if you can, and try hard in math. If you're good at math and you can run and swim, you'll excel at this job. And those are three. In high school, you can get those three things for free. So definitely take advantage of the chances you have before you join the Navy. It'll set you up for success.
Excellent. And Lieutenant, what piece of advice would you give to somebody who wanted to be a helicopter pilot for the Navy?
Don't ever let anybody tell you no. I probably applied a dozen times to try and get in the Navy, and I finally got in. Just be tenacious and just keep trying. Don't ever let anybody tell you no.
Excellent. Thank you both so much for your time today. I know cadets really appreciate it. Lieutenant Smith, AWS-1, thank you guys so much for your time today.